Hello and welcome to DSI Live tonight on Facebook. I'm here with Katherine Eitel Belt. Hello, Katherine. Welcome.
Hello.
And I'm your host, Vanessa, founder of Dental Speaker Institute. And I think probably most of you know Katherine and I by now. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a real special, I would say 30 minutes or more. Because I was going to say hour, because I'm going to start at 30 because it'll probably expand closer to
with us
when you and I get talking. But Katherine has some great tips to share with us from her years working with speakers and consultants and being a speaker consultant in dentistry. I'm going to ask you, Katherine, to get us started by share with us a little bit about your focus, just maybe like the 2 to 3 minute version around, what is it that you do, and specifically as it relates to speakers and consultants, and just what brought you here to this point. And while you do that, I'm going to look away and make sure we're actually live.
All right.
Before you jump in, for anyone who is joining us, please let me know you're here. Let us know we're live. If you could say hello to Katherine in the comments. Thank you. Go ahead. Take it away, Katherine.
Yeah, sure. So, of course, my company is Lion Speak, and Lion Speak is a communications coaching company. And we like to say that we coach in 3 different lanes or sectors. The first one is patient-facing or client-facing communication. So we still do telephone skills training and training for dental and medical offices on patient communications, direct patient to patient. Then our second lane is leadership. So it's team-facing communications, leader to team, manager to team, team member to team member. So a lot of culture development, personal leadership, and just team development, and especially when it comes to how they communicate with one another. And then our third lane is the lane I think that we're most interested in tonight, which is, we like to say, audience-facing communications. So that really encompasses our Train the Speaker and Train the Trainer programs. But the overarching umbrella for Lion Speak is communication skills coaching. If there's something that somebody really wants to say well and communicate well, we like to think we can help them do that better. How I got here was coming through the dental field. I became a dental practice management consultant and was that for several decades. But about 4 years ago, I stopped doing full practice management consulting. I no longer do that or offer it. And we narrowed my focus and the focus of my company and rebranded. And now we just do communication skills coaching. And I'm just loving it. It was a bit of a jump off a cliff moment. I wasn't sure that dental teams or speakers or trainers would, maybe especially dental teams, would pay just for communication skills coaching only. And turns out they will, and it turns out they really love it and want it. And so we just haven't looked back. It's been great. So
that's exciting. I love hearing that recap, especially it's meaningful to me because of our history, which I think we have a lot of members out here that may not know that you guys are looking at how I got started in dental. Yeah. I'm into my 19th year working in the dental industry. And all those years ago, Katherine Eitel Belt opened the door to her office to welcome me in for an interview. And I thought, wow, I think I'd like to work here. And had no experience with speaking or consulting or dentistry. And so, it's fun for me to hear where you're at now as I've watched the journey for all those years and watched you really develop your speaker development and trainer consultant development. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, and look at you now. It's been equally a joy for me to watch you blossom into this amazing business and such a great service that you offer to speakers that really hasn't been here prior to this. So really,
Thank you. It is a lot of fun to grow. It's a great industry to be in. So I knew that when we had this on the schedule that we're going to be able to have lots to talk about as far as we could fill days with content, educational content, because that is what you do. But so we just kind of narrowed it down as you and I talked about, what should we cover? And Katherine gave us a laundry list of some things that she's finding that she's doing a lot of coaching on these days. And I'm just going to kind of lean us into that. And we put that out in our Facebook notice here. Oops, I accidentally turned my volume way down. Sorry. But let's get started with more of a training and speaking tip, which was around this idea of simplifying a complex subject, which many, especially clinical speakers, but many speakers are challenged by, I would think.
Yeah, I think in this industry of dental speakers, we tend to attract a lot of speakers that have a lot of technical or clinical knowledge. It's not the only industry. I did a little jaunt outside of dentistry recently in the architectural and construction design world. It turns out that the same type of people are attracted to architecture as dentistry. They like the fine detail. They like complexity and small detail, and so that makes them excellent clinicians. It makes them excellent architects. It makes them excellent dentists and hygienists and all of that. It's a challenge either for an architect or for a dentist and hygienist, a clinician, to take that advanced knowledge of complex subjects and simplify them into a way that they're not only interesting, but they're digestible, and into a way that they give a feeling of hope that the audience could actually take those suggestions and do something with them because they're simple enough to wrap their arms around, versus having them feel like they've been fire hosed with, a huge spray of water and they can't get a drink. And so I think for me, it's a big challenge for many speakers in our industry. And I like to say that our job as speakers, not as dentists, not as hygienists, but our job as speakers is to take the complex, whether that's HIPAA or it's crown lengthening or whatever it is, to take a complex subject. Our job is to turn that complex subject into a simple, digestible way to understand it. So to take the complex and make it seem simple. And it often feels, I think, to speakers that if they do that, they won't appear as knowledgeable as they are. And in fact, in my experience, it's been just the opposite. Mm-hmm. That when someone can stand and clearly make a complex subject appear more simple and easier to master, we're attracted to them. The audience is attracted to them far more than someone who makes the complex seem more complex. So the best speakers know how to do that. They know how to organize their information and deliver it in a way that says, there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I'm going to help you for the first time understand it in a way you've not understood it before. And I really love that. Yeah.
So how do we do that?
Well, one of the best ways, I think, is to take this formula that I teach called the bookshelf, or any relatable formula like this. The idea is to take all of your information. If all of us had to say, for one entire subject we teach, we have got to put it into 5 or less compartments. In my bookshelf analogy, that would be in 5 or less books, 1 to 5 books.
Right.
Or maybe you might think of them as buckets, 1 to 5 buckets. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that there aren't layers. It means if you think about the bookshelf analogy, you might think of a book that's got several chapters and sub-chapters within it. But from a high level view, there are these major components. One of the things I love most about sort of a side benefit to this thinking this way and organizing your information this way is that when someone says, could you give us that presentation, Katherine, in 10 minutes? maybe it's a presentation I normally take 2 hours to deliver, I'm able to say, absolutely, absolutely. Because I know that you and I could sit down for 10 minutes and I could give you an overview of my 4 steps to an exceptional telephone call, or the bookshelf analogy. I could give you the entire picture in 10 minutes, as well as I could give it to you in 2 hours. It's just that in 2 hours, I get to deepen those books. I get to deepen those buckets. I get to give you a few more layers there. But regardless, I always give you a full picture, a complete picture, and I always make it seem simpler, not more complex. And so I think if you can think about, if I had to put my information into 1 to 5 categories or buckets, how would it? Well, I love Margie Schaller's exercise of laying out all your pieces on note cards or sticky notes, and watch and see how they start to group together. They can sometimes very naturally start to group together. I just think it's really hard for someone to remember more than 5 things when they walk out of your presentation. And I think 5 is pushing it. I think less is more. The best speech I ever heard, Vanessa, I think we might have been together at NSA, but I remember listening to a speech where basically there was one book on the shelf. There was one. It was Joe Calloway. And Joe Calloway did that Let It Go. Mm-hmm. And there was one book, and it was an hour, 45-minute, 60-minute presentation. I remember laughing. I remember being moved to tears, and I remember taking action after that speech. 45 minutes on the NSA stage, one bucket on the shelf.
Yeah.
And we took action. And we remember it all these years later.
So, many people remember that one. That was one of the very best presentations I've ever heard. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So an example that less is more. And I think if you start to think about organizing your content in that way, you'll be able to inspire your audience to take action and to move forward with the information in a much more powerful way and meaningful way.
I love hearing this. I think it makes me think of expanding and contracting, so that when you have your list in your head and you know those parts. I think it was Katrina I saw had posted something recently about how the invisible flexibility rule she learned from you. I think we're talking about an area where you could utilize that if you're running short on time or long on time. You then, when you have it broken down in these books, you could expand or contract.
Depending on what's showing up. Yeah. What he's really referring to, it is driven from that bookshelf analogy where you have those books, and you've also got the strong bookends of a really powerful opening and a really powerful closing that hold those books together. What she's really talking about is then once you're solid there, and you start to notice that maybe you thought you were going to be on book 3 at the top of the hour, but you're nowhere near that. Already having figured out how to give the audience a task so that they look away from you, they look away from the PowerPoint. It buys you some time to walk over, get your thoughts together, move the marker, move your slides, move whatever you need to move that's invisible to the audience, and sort of catapult or, leapfrog over some of the information, so that by the time you call their attention back to you, you now have moved the marker forward and they're none the wiser for it. And you finish on time, which is obviously the sign of a professional. So that having that built in already and knowing and feeling confident is what she's referring to. And I love that idea of invisible flexibility and having those skills.
I love that too. And I'm sitting here just smiling because how many times have I sat through your Lioness Principle Train the Trainer program or your inspirational speaker workshop? And I'm sitting, I mean, for those of you who don't know, I mean, it's easily a dozen, right? Because we worked together for years. And then I've been back as a student as well. And it just reminds me how there's so much that you can learn, that as we continue to grow as speakers and trainers, that there's always another level we can take it to when we pursue excellence. And by doing that, we're going to be able to up our speaking fee.
Yeah.
We're going to be able to get more engagements, right? We're going to use that. I think it was Jane Atkinson in her Wealthy Speaker, where she talks about the measuring stick she uses to for the speakers that she coaches, to let them know that they're done. They don't need to keep working on their speech or their skills. Is every single time they speak, spinning off business. And I don't know very many people who can say that.
Yeah.
You know, every single time, literally, not leads, but actual business.
Yeah.
And so it's these kind of skills that we're talking about tonight that just really make someone feel like a pro. And as a side note, why I'm really super excited to be able to announce more about our curriculum soon, because this kind of education is in there. And I think it's going to just help elevate our industry to have speakers at this level. So thank you for sharing that about your bookshelf analogy and the invisible flexibility and some areas that we can utilize there in all of our content. But, you know, before we jump to another subject too, let me just share transformational trainer workshop and inspirational speaker workshop. And while you're talking in a minute, I'm going to type those up on our little thing, our little ants. But Catherine's website is lionspeak.net. lionspeak.net, and you can find under her training and speaking skills more information about those. And I know that you have live workshops, but I'm pretty sure you also have a video version for someone if it's too long before they can get to the transformational trainer. There's a video version of that. And I know you also offer one-on-one coaching. And I don't mean for this to feel like I just get so excited. It's not like advertisement, the whole thing, but like in truth, I mean, you're my speaking coach, my primary speaking coach, and have been for years. And so I just really believe in the value of that coaching. And I would say also been a speaker coach to many speakers who are doing competitions and showcases, just kind of tuck that away. Now we have multiple speaker development coaches in our faculty, and they're all very good. And I just want to highlight, since we're chatting with Katherine here, that is one of the offerings. So let's shift gears a little bit. And I started to allude to that when we were talking about how you can spin off more engagements when you get really good with your presentations.
Yeah.
One area that I definitely coach speakers on a lot, and you shared with me that you've been starting to have more and more conversations, is negotiating speaking contracts. And I do think there's a lot of buzz in the industry right now, more than usual, it feels like, around what people are seeing with in the way of honorariums. And maybe we could talk a little bit about that, what I'm seeing, what you're seeing, but also how do we ensure, how do we negotiate those agreements? And also how can we like maximize the financial end of that for the speaker? So dive in with what you're seeing. What are you coaching people on there?
Well, two major things to think about when you're thinking about, is this a good opportunity for me? And how do I negotiate the fee? Or I would say a better way to look at it is the compensation and the opportunity, leveraging the opportunity. So a couple of things have really helped me. I have a list rate, as most speakers do. I have a full day rate, I have a half day rate, and they're plus travel. And so early on in my speaking career, someone advised me to think, if not to actually say this, to think in this way, that I don't really negotiate my fee as much as I negotiate how the fee might be paid. So I think it's a good mindset to go into. There's a second piece to the mindset of negotiating the compensation as a speaker, and that is to understand what Mark LeBlanc calls your ideal audience and your ideal client, and to know the profile of those. Because the truth is that I know there are speakers who their primary purpose for speaking is not to spin off business, but for most of us, that's the case. And if it is the case, then knowing your ideal audience will make a difference in how you negotiate, or even if you negotiate at all. So here's a good example. My ideal fit for courageous conversations and leadership coaching is owner dentists or managers of practices. Those are the primary. That's the highest or best profile that I have for that work. So I was recently asked to deliver courageous conversations to a room of dental assistants. And it's clear across the country. It was not going to be a major airport. So this was going to be difficult travel between two trips. And it's not my ideal audience. And they were offering much less than my full fee. So I felt good about recognizing that I probably wouldn't spin off very much business from that speaking opportunity, and therefore I stuck to my guns on the honorarium. Now I offered sponsors, but in my mind I knew that if I didn't come to my full honorarium or very close, it would not be worth accepting that date. And it was helpful for me. Had that been a room full of owner doctors and office managers, I would have negotiated that very differently and felt very differently about it as an opportunity. So I think doing the work ahead of time to identify who are your best fit audiences and best fit clients, and keeping that in your mind when you go in to negotiate. So there are so many ways we have been able to make the opportunity work. Sponsorship is the place we go to first, obviously, if they can't pay the fee completely, and it's a good fit audience for us. We developed a form. So when they say, well, when they say, what is your fee? I at least take one stab, because this is what we teach even for dental offices with telephone calls. We take a stab at saying, well, I'm anxious to talk to you about that, and I know it's a big consideration for us in our discussions. I'm curious if there is a budget that you're trying to work within. And I would say, I haven't really put exact figures to this or looked at it really closely, but my guess is that about 80% of the time, they give me their budget, or at least a range for their budget. No. And, about 20% of the time, maybe, 1 out of 5 will kind of know what we're doing. And they'll say, well, I'd really like to just know your fee. And then you can tell they kind of know what's going on, and they're just not willing to throw that card down on the table. But most do. And so that allows me then to know, where are we starting from? And so then I'll say, well, my fee is X, and so that's quite a bit lower than what my normal honorarium is. But I really want to speak for your group, and I really want to present this information to them, as I think it will be really meaningful and helpful to them. And so let's talk about how we might be able to arrange for that honorarium to be compensated. One idea I have is sponsorship. And so I'm curious if you allow it. And we talk about, if they do, how they allow it. And then we have a form that if they say yes, then I say, well, I have a group of sponsors, and there are certain considerations that they will have to determine if this is something they want to sponsor, if this is a presentation they want to sponsor. So can I ask you a few questions about what my sponsor would be allowed to provide or to participate in? And if there's just a list that says, will they be able to have a representative there? Will they be able to address the group or introduce me and say a few words about their company? Can they have a table in the room? Can we distribute information? Can we put their logo on advertising? All these different things, so that when I take this opportunity to my sponsors, I already have that all answered, and I can send it out to them and say, here's the opportunity, here's what's allowed, here's what they're offering, are you interested? And it's just made that process so seamless. If it's either not allowed or it's not enough, then we begin to look at, can I contribute an article to a journal and maybe get some advertisement on next to that article? Or can I find a way to make my honorarium more valuable to them in terms of offering to moderate a panel, or MC an awards dinner at this event, or some other skill that I think I might be able to provide. And there's a long list of, can travel be negotiated out of a different budget? Sometimes I found that to be the case. So lots of different ways that you can talk about making the numbers add up to the honorarium that you're looking for. But what has been most helpful is understanding. I'm not going to negotiate my fee at all for a bad fit or even a medium fit audience, but I might negotiate it much more for a really, really good fit for me for future business. And then it's incumbent upon me to have the skills and grow the skills and learn the skills to be able to sell that audience into a next step without sounding like a commercial from the stage. And of course, that's a whole different set of skills. But once you get those skills, mastered, it's easy to make a good fit audience to leverage that into additional business.
I love that. I love the idea of the good fit, right fit, perfect fit as a starting place. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important to think about the numbers too, of people that will be there, and how you're in your example, 200 dentists versus 200 assistants is different just from the standpoint of if you were going to reach out and get sponsorship assistance, it's not likely, it is as likely to get assistance from a sponsor for a group of assistants versus getting that sponsorship assistance for a group of dentists. Much
exactly. Excuse me for interrupting, but I'll say I don't in any way want to communicate that I don't value dental assistants, because I definitely do. It's just that my product line, my service line, isn't typically geared for them to be the purchaser of that. So that's number one. And number two, there are companies that their market is dental assistants, no question about it. And there are also speakers whose information and products and services are very much geared to helping assistants to improve their profession or their careers or even their clinical work. And so I think my point is, as a speaker, it's important that we're clear who our buyers are,
right,
for our services in our business. And if we're speaking to generate more business in our company, more spinoff business, then it makes sense. We can't say yes to everything. So one of the barometers, is
totally.
that.
Totally. And Katherine, I'm sorry, because I was going in a different direction. I was not meaning to piggyback on what you're saying. Of course, I'm not devaluing dental assistants as much as I was wanting to make a point that what I found is that in general, for most speakers, because most speakers don't speak specifically to like just assistants or office managers, right, that you'll find, and that I was just kind of playing with assistants, and that's maybe where we went downhill. But what I have found is that for speakers, I don't want them to think, oh, well, then I'll just go get a sponsor, because it doesn't always work that way.
That's right.
What I have found is that we're more likely to receive sponsorship dollars when we have a group of dentists, especially a larger group of dentists, only, I think, not because we devalue any member of the team, but the dentists are the people who are the ultimate business deciders in the practice. And so just to make that point, but of course we absolutely love dental assistants.
Of course. And I love, and I would love that presentation and that opportunity, but at full fee, because I know I won't get probably very much spinoff business from it. So I'm happy to do it and would do a good job. And I would want and need to be paid my full fee for that. So that's kind of, I think it gives speakers a good method of determining, is this a good opportunity, and how far and how much will I negotiate my honorarium for this opportunity. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. A couple of things I'd like to add. I do have on a blog article where you had mentioned how you have a list of things that sponsors would normally
Yes.
look for. So on thedentalspeaker.com, there is a blog article where I have some templates to help people get started. This is an area where I coach people pretty much every day. So there are some resources out there for those of you who are interested in this. If you go to look up sponsorship as far as in the word cloud, it will take you right to that article where it will walk you through what the meeting planner would typically offer, what the meeting would typically be looking for, and also some little templates to help you reach out to your sponsors to make it a little bit easier. Sponsorship is such a big part of the conversation now. And one other thing I'd love to throw into this when we have this negotiation with the meeting planner, for me, the top two are sponsorship and then back of the room sales. Yeah. I'm finding that still there are a lot of organizations. I mean, it won't be our big major national meetings, or some states are a little more controlling around that. They don't really want any advertising in the room, but there's still so many opportunities, especially our smaller meetings, study clubs. I was just talking with someone today where it prompted me that, I mean, somebody might say to me, well, I don't have anything to put on the table. I don't have product to sell. Like in years past, I've seen some speakers sell $15,000 to $20,000 literally in product because they had tons of like CDs and stuff, but our industry's changed. But what we do have is many of us have a book, or we have some level of service that we could also bundle it with, like coaching. Yes. So I've seen people sell like a book or like one video or something, and then they bundle it for a couple $100 more with like a coaching call, and then have a flyer for that. You can always find something to put on that table. And yes. I think in the meeting planner's mind, it feels like it's equitable that way. Because and could we also just make a clarification? I think this is such an important topic for speakers, and there's a lot of confusion around the whole contracting and these communications. I like to suggest, I'd love to hear what you think. I always suggest to speakers that when they go down this road of working with the planner at the fee that was budgeted, for instance, and then you seeking sponsorship, I think we have to be clear who's seeking the sponsorship and who's getting the payment. And I always encourage people to make sure that's written in, because you and I both heard those horror stories of meetings that misunderstood and thought they were going to get the money when the speaker went after those fees. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I have heard the horror stories. Maybe it's just been luck, but I've never had it happen to me. I've never had any misunderstanding ever with my meeting planner about the fact that I would be receiving those dollars and I would be seeking the sponsorship. I certainly have heard that speakers, friends of mine, have had those troubles. I don't know. We're very clear in our agreement. Yeah. And they see the agreement. I always send our agreement. I mean, except for the very big major meetings. But even then, we still will send bullets from our conversation in an email to confirm what we just verbally discussed, long before I even get the contract from the big meeting. So I feel like that's probably helped some. I feel for meeting planners. I think their meetings are changing. I think it's becoming harder and harder to attract attendees and members and vendors and sponsors. And I think they're struggling to provide high quality education with tighter and tighter budgets. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to work with meeting planners to help provide really good education and really good presentations, and to be smart about our own business and try to be creative and open to ways that we can work with sponsors and with meeting planners to create a great meeting for everyone.
Totally. And many meeting planners are wearing that hat, that generic hat, but it's a volunteer position and they're brand new. And so I think it's likely that you've had really good experience with it because you're a communications coach. And I think it really goes down to communications is what I hear you saying, making sure it's clear in our emails in our conversation, make sure it's clear in our email, make sure, I always encourage people to make sure it's written in. If they don't type it in, make sure it's written in. So just so it's really clear. Really clear. Want to make sure that everybody has a good experience from that. But okay, so let's move on to another topic. Another thing that we had chatted about was in this world where there are many practice management speakers, many dental implant speakers, many OSHA speakers. What is it about, or how can we, what are some tips on how we can identify what's special and unique about us and or our offerings, our presentation? How do we, I would say in a word, differentiate? What are some tips you have for helping people determine that?
So a couple of things come to mind. One is, and I've noticed this in my coaching with speakers lately, they'll be telling me about their topic, initially and telling me about their information. But I'm always listening sort of behind that conversation. I'm listening for, why are they passionate about this? Why are they speaking on this? Why do they feel drawn to do this or to present this to audiences? And what is it that they, what is a special way they have that is fresh and new? Paul Homily talks about us being thought leaders and sometimes maybe taking the contrarian viewpoint to what's currently being sort of adopted across the board in different subjects. And I love that, because I think it's one of the ways that Lion Speak and myself as a speaker have differentiated ourselves, because I always said, to myself, how could I have both consistency in communication and authenticity? Is a script the only way we could do it? What if we could find a way to do both? And so the minute I didn't invent telephone skills, and I didn't invent a great way to attract new patients or to manage those phone calls. But what I did do was ask some questions about what is it about the way that I teach that is unique and maybe is a different spin on what they've heard before. And that usually revolves around us identifying. I love to ask the question, why aren't they already doing this? Why don't they already have this mastered? What's the reason? So as a speaker, if you ask yourself, why aren't they already having morning huddles? If that's what you speak on, or why have they already mastered OSHA or whatever it is? Mm-hmm. Is it because they don't have enough time? From their perspective, is it because they don't think they have enough time, or is it that they don't, it's too complicated, or it's too costly, or they don't really believe it's that important? What is it? Because if you can say, for the first time, I'm going to show you why OSHA is the most important thing you can think about when you first walk through the dental office. Or for the first time, I'm going to show you how OSHA does not have to be hard or complicated. It actually boils down to 3 things, or whatever. So when you think about why aren't they already here? And how could I show them a way to step over that gap? Yeah. You now become unique. You now become a unique voice in your subject, rather than what Simon Bailey calls an annoying echo. We don't want to be an annoying echo of what everyone else is saying. We want to have this unique voice. And I think that's really the piece. So that's one piece. The other thing is, I'm always listening in the background for why people are passionate about this. And I'll give you a great example. I was coaching a young hygienist recently, and her presentation was about all these different tips for hygienists on how to make their hygiene visit more efficient, more productive. And I'm listening to her, and she's got lots of great information that covers a myriad of subjects within the hygiene hour for hygienists. And I asked her, I said, why are you, I know you're a hygienist and you've been a practicing hygienist for a while, but why are you interested in taking these tips to your colleagues? And she says, well, I think they just really make it more productive and more efficient. And I said, yes, I get that. But why do you care?
Yeah.
Why do you care? Why do you want to be on that stage? Why is it important to you? And she said, oh, well, it's not really relevant to the speech. And I said, well, humor me. And she said, well, to tell you the truth, I think for many years I was a hygienist that did not find much joy. I liked my work and I was good at it, But I wouldn't say I found joy every day in my job. And because of that, I was experiencing a pretty big level of burnout. And I found myself going home, not being a very good, not really having much left in the gas tank for my children, for my husband, for my friends, and even for myself. And what I know happened for me when I learned these tips, these things I'm trying to tell them about, is I found more joy in my work. Work got easier and work was more joyful. And I came home with more gas in the gas tank. And it allowed me to be a better mother and a better wife and a better person, a better human being, rather than just a good hygienist. And I said, that is a distinguishing piece. Instead of you appearing to be a hygienist who knows a lot and has a couple of tips for us, you become the hygienist that allows us to bring joy and balance back into the career of hygiene by learning a few tips. That's a much bigger communication. It's a much more inspirational message, and it helps you stand out among female hygienists who are talking about how to make hygiene visits more productive. And so I think it's important as speakers that we ask ourselves, why are we particularly passionate about bringing our message to our constituents? And I think that's an important piece that we don't always bring to the table and should.
So this is a different way to do the start with why. It's a different application for it.
Yeah.
And so then once we know our why, then how do we work that in? So what we're saying is when we get clear about what is, we assume we're experts in the topic to start with, right? We assume we have that content. And so then when we get clear about why, that helps us bring in like the stories and the analogies and the like, help take it one more step deeply for me to help connect it then.
I think our audience needs to know, why are we personally passionate about this? Like what has occurred to us that this is important, and what did us mastering these skills so that now we can teach it? What did us mastering these skills, what did that give us? What was the breakthrough for us around that? And it's usually more than just learning a few extra tips. It's usually we're attracted to it because we were doing it really poorly in the beginning and this made life easier, or we were struggling to make a living at this, and suddenly when we had this breakthrough, now we're very prosperous in this work, or we were maybe held back in our life until we had this breakthrough, until we had this knowledge and things opened up for us and opportunities presented themselves to us once we had this knowledge. And because of that, we want everyone to have that breakthrough. We want everyone to have that realization. That's a much more powerful platform to speak from than to stand up there just as an expert regurgitating and delivering data and processes and information. I think it's incumbent upon us to make it interesting and to make the passion, to connect the passion and the why. And you do that through story, you do it through metaphor, you do it through illustration, you do it through demonstration. Sometimes technology tools like video, or, there's lots of different tools and ways to communicate this message. But I think for me as a speakers coach, something I've learned in just the last few months as a coach for speakers and as a coach to myself, I think I have to get to, why is this speaker moved to tell this to an audience? What is their personal connection to this? And how do we make sure the audience understands that and feels that? Yeah. And so I'm asking a whole new set of questions to my coachees than I was before, because I see this was a missing piece. And so like I said, lots of different ways to incorporate it into your speech, but first you have to be clear about what that is and believe that it's important to the audience.
Thank you for the really great deep explanation on that. That does help clarify. Sure. And it's a really unique way to look at the knowing your why and a great way to apply it. Let's go to a speed round.
Okay.
What do you wish you would have known when you were first starting out as a speaker and consultant? What do you wish you would have known then?
I said this at ADMC. I wish I would have known that I was a business owner and a businesswoman who happened to be a speaker and a coach, rather than for so many years thinking of myself as a speaker and a coach that just happened to work for herself or own her own business. I did not get myself educated about how to run a good business, from the financial aspect to the leadership aspect to the structural or strategic aspect. And that has made all the difference. It's helped me to say no to more things and yes to more things. It's helped me to be more profitable and ultimately to have a business that is truly mine, of my creation, and that I really enjoy, and that supports my overall life, not the other way around. And I feel like I'm just getting that, and I wish I would have known this. I wish I would have known it at the beginning. I think I would be a billionaire by now. But
when was the beginning? How many years for you now on speaking and consulting?
Gosh, I was trying to think. You always get things by when your kids were born. But I got seriously into this in 1990. So it's been
almost 30 years.
Yeah, almost 30 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like a blink.
Like a blink.
What are you most excited about right now with your business? What are you most excited about?
Gosh, I'm excited that I have a pretty good crew on board, I think, finally, to take our patient service line and run with it. So I don't have to deliver that anymore or as much. I'm really excited about it. I'm proud of the work I've developed there, and I'm proud of the systems and things we put together, and I'm really proud of the team I have to deliver it. So I think the most exciting thing now is what that opens up for me, which is I'm really passionate about taking this method of helping people have courageous conversations with the important people in their life better. And so I'm excited about taking that to a broader stage. I'm excited about finishing, I should say, a book on that subject. And I think because I believe that by teaching this well to a large amount of people, we could literally change the world right now. I truly believe that. And I just got chills. I really believe it. And so I'm excited to put more energy into that subject, and whether that courageous conversation is from the stage to an audience you care very much about, or whether it's with your boss, or you're a new manager in a group practice and you really want to influence your people in a really impactful way. Whatever those courageous conversations are, whoever they're with, a meeting planner, I feel like we have a really simple method to help people do that better. And I'm excited to bring it to the marketplace in a much bigger way.
Oh, that's exciting. That's exciting. Now, one more question off of the one before this, where you talked to us about what you wish you would have known then about being a businesswoman. So many of the people that will listen to this are going to be entrepreneurs. They're going to be solopreneurs that are trying to grow a business. Do you have, as I look around the industry, there's a lot of different coaches that people use and different ways that they grow as entrepreneurs. Do you have a suggestion? A shout out, a referral of any sort to the rest of us who are on that same bus and trying to grow that way?
Yeah, I don't think it's one particular coach, but for any one person. But for me, lately, I've really been enjoying my work with Mark LeBlanc. He's been instrumental in helping me understand my business and develop a strategic plan that I feel like I can drive forward from a leadership position. So I've really enjoyed that. It's really helped me to redefine, how I run my business. And then also, for me, I feel like no matter where we are in our speaking world, we need coaching.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing some virtual work with Heroic Speaking. I don't know if you're familiar with their organization. So I've actually just purchased some training videos. They are actors. It's a husband and wife team, and they come from acting and a background, and they are tremendous speakers. They've done some TED Talks, but they have a speaking institute back east. And while I'm not quite ready to take on private coaching with them, although I may, I've really been enjoying the video series. They have a mastery of stage presence and delivery, and I'm really enjoying that coaching. So I think
depending
on what you're asking, I think there's different coaches for different pieces of our work, and so that's really who,
And different seasons too, don't you think too?
Yeah.
Like different coaches all have something different to offer. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
One more question. What should I have asked that I didn't? Is there anything we didn't cover that would be important to share?
Gosh, well, I just love this group of people. I love our sponsors and our fellow speakers, no matter if they're just starting or they're career professionals and everything in between. I love our industry, and I think that what you've put together here is a community of support and networking that is really important. This can be a lonely business, and I hope that if people are feeling isolated or lonely or curious or feeling a little stuck, that they will reach out to me or to others that are in your network. Because there's a lot of love and support here, and I certainly wouldn't be where I am today without my colleagues and the coaches and friends in this business that I've had. So I would say, if you're feeling at all confused or not sure what the next step is or how to move forward, just don't sit there, reach out and find that help. Of course, we have lots of different ways that people can get that help, but there's just a huge group of people that want you to succeed. And I wouldn't just sit and not take a step, because there'll be a perfect step for you somewhere in this group.
Well, that's awesome. You did a great job of leading me into our Jumpstart, where I would like to talk to you about your pre-conference session. But let me remind everybody, Jumpstart 2020 will be January 9 through 11 in just a few months. Oh my gosh. Oh! It's going to be Christmas, and then it's going to be the new year before we blink. It's fall, and we're all so busy with travel. So Phoenix, Arizona, January 9 through 11. And on the 8th, in the afternoon of the 8th, we are offering some pre-conference sessions. Can you tell us just a little bit about your conference session?
So my pre-conference session, I'm excited about it. It's about how to have courageous conversations as a speaker. So whether that is from the stage, in your speech, whether that is being confronted by someone in your audience in any variety of ways, whether that is with a meeting planner one-on-one, or whether it is with a client. Part of our work is with workshop leaders and trainers that are training inside businesses or dental practices. And so a lot of times the courageous conversation needs to be had with a team member or a client. And so we're going to talk about a structure that you can depend on to have courageous conversations with the people that speakers need to interact with in our business. I'm excited in one particular way, and that is that I'm going to teach the skill, but then we're going to bring some volunteers up and let them be these people. We're going to let them be a meeting planner, or let them step into the voice of maybe a client that isn't cooperating, or an audience member that's challenging you from the floor. And I'm going to demonstrate live in the room, based on whatever they bring, how this system is just so far infallible. It has worked every time, and I love these demonstrations.
That's a big promise, my friend. Infallible.
I know this is live on Facebook, but and what I love about it is when I'm able to demonstrate it, where people, they believe that we haven't orchestrated this, that it's just happening live in front of them. I find that there's a huge shift in the room into them being believers in the process, because that's how it happens in life. In life, you don't have any warning. You don't get to practice it too much. It just shows up in your audience, or it shows up in a client visit. And, I want them to believe they can trust this process that much. And it's a super fun way to really get people to believe in the process. So I'm excited about it. And I hope your listeners will think about coming in an afternoon early and joining us.
Absolutely. Now I put up in here underneath our heads there on the screen, January 8th pre-conference session afternoon. I think you were 3 to 4:30. And then, but for more information, shoot off an email to info@Katherine. Oh, I put, look, old habits die hard. All those years we worked together here. Let me fix that. That was my, it should be info@LionSpeak.
That's right. .net.
.net. There we go. So email info@lionspeak.net, and that will get you to Katherine or Kelly, and they can get you more information on that session. Now, those afternoon sessions on Wednesday afternoon, you work directly with a faculty member for payment and to arrange registration. This is for people who are coming in early, and let's face it, January in Phoenix, it won't be the warmest place on earth, but it's probably going to be a lot nicer than a lot of places on earth.
That's right.
I find that a lot of people are looking for a reason to extend before or after. And I think that's wonderful. So we're technically in Mesa, and it would be a good time to say here too that it's just a short little shuttle ride from the airport for anyone who's planning their trip. Be sure you get your hotel room booked. It's a small hotel with the conference center. It's very nice. It's only a couple of years old, but they don't have a lot of availability over the number that we're going to need. And we're already at 150 people room. I think there's like 150 people. There's about 180 rooms at this hotel. So do not wait, because we're not the only game in that town, right? So there'll be other people there. And then it's a complimentary shuttle ride over. So, and the hotel is only $139 a night. And it's a really nice little hotel. So it's going to be fun. Okay, so, and then also at Jumpstart, Katherine will be doing a presentation for our sponsoring partners. And you don't know this yet, but you're also going to do another concurrent session.
Oh, great.
My girlfriend.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about it, but Katherine will be doing another concurrent session as well for educators and speakers. So that information will be coming soon on the website. We'll be getting the full agenda up. So before we go, and thank you so much for sharing and
You're welcome.
All your knowledge. Let me just, it's my podcast. It's my Facebook Live. I can take all the time I want, right? I'll be a little diva for a minute, but I want to take some time and just say, seriously, people, you've got to go to Transformational Trainer. I tell people this all the time. If it were me, helping others know what they need to do on that path, there are certain courses that are just do not miss. And here's the thing. Transformational Trainer Level 1, pair it up with their Inspirational Speakers Workshop, and that is 4 days that will change your life. Now, it's not going to make you communicate better with your husband necessarily, or that kind of change, right? But what it is going to do, I can't tell you, like we said earlier, probably at least a dozen times I've been there. In the years we worked together, I gave up on the testimonials because there was like over 100 testimonials, and there's been there's probably been hundreds of our colleagues who have gone to those courses. There's a reason that they're coming out of that course saying, I wish I would have known this when I got started. Yeah. I'm 10 years into this, 15 years into this, I'm 20 years into this, and I've been doing it wrong. There's not really a wrong, but I'm just going to share, because I know I'm not the communication expert you are. I'm a little rough around the edges, so I'm just going to share. This is Vanessa Country Girl sharing. This is what I've heard over the years, is so many people have pulled me aside and said, oh my gosh, I'm going to be training this week. I've got to go back and I'm going to do it all different. And then I feel so strongly that the education techniques you teach for adult learners are so impactful for us, for our audiences, absolutely, for our consulting teams we work with, but absolutely for those of you out here who I talk to every day who want to do more with speaking, want to grow more with consulting. This is a big part of the puzzle. When we talk about differentiation, I look at that entirely differently than what you were talking about. Is like the way we present, and it's like a whole different. It's like looking at our why. We're looking at that a little differently. For me, everything goes back to marketing. So on a differentiation standpoint, those workshops will help you differentiate as a presenter, hands down, because what will happen is that when you apply these techniques, meeting planners take notice because your evaluations reflect that they learn much more. They go back to the office and then they let the people at the society know or the study club know that was just like the best thing, and we're able to put it into practice back in the office. So I'll stop because I could just go on and on and on, but just hear me. This is an unpaid, unsolicited testimonial.
It is. It's great.
Totally. But I just really, really, really believe it. And that's why I recommend it to so many people. No matter where you're at in your journey, if you have not done the Train the Trainer and Katherine's Inspirational Speaker Workshop, be sure you work that in to an upcoming, here in the next year or two, be sure you work that in, because it will change your results. It'll change your business life. I think that's infallible.
Well, I can't thank you enough. It is certainly one of our most favorite things to teach and to deliver are those workshops. It's so much fun to see the light bulbs go off and people take their content that's important to them and to their audience and to their clients, and find a way to get their audiences engaged in a much deeper level, and to absorb it at a higher rate, and to just make a bigger difference. It's also how I've gotten feedback that it's allowed speakers and trainers and coaches to raise their fees and to extend contracts beyond the first initial 6 months or a year, because now they see they can just go on and in teaching the mastery of their content. So
with them doing less work.
Yes, and one of the most fun things is that the trainer starts having, and the speaker starts having more fun, because they're not carrying the entire load of the transfer. They involve the learner, and we know millennials and the upcoming newer generations that are in our audiences, whether that's in a client's office or in a presentation, they want more engaged learning. They just do, and so we can deliver that if we learn how. And so, thank you for that amazing testimonial. I appreciate it, and we would love to welcome anyone in the DSI network to come to either our Train the Speaker or our Train the Trainer. We have a Train the Speaker program in November at my ranch in Southern California, so that's always fun. And then we have a Train the Speaker and Train the Trainer program in March of 2020. So love to welcome you, into those workshops. Just let us know how we can support you or get you the information.
So let me just put up here. So for more information on that, you go to lionspeak.net. And then one more quick thing before we go.
Sure.
I think you mentioned earlier something around leadership. And I know I attended your Leaders of the Pride workshop. Could you just give us a real quick?
Sure.
Nugget on that?
It's a 2-day workshop that we're doing for anyone who wants to improve their leadership communication. So certainly Courageous Conversations is a big part of that, but also how to bring your team together and deliver the vision every year to your team. I've just scheduled Lion Speaks retreat for February. So we talk about how to put that meeting together. How does an owner orchestrate and deliver their vision? We also talk about the difference between coaching a team and supervising a team. There's a big difference. So we give some ideas around how to coach people better. And I have been shocked, Vanessa, at how many over the last 2 years that we've been delivering this course, how many consultants have come to learn for themselves and also have brought their clients. And I think I'm hoping that it's a testament to the fact that we're not seen as competition. We no longer do practice management consulting. And as a matter of fact, we refer a lot of clients to consultants now. And but they come with their clients, they learn with their clients, and then they're able to take it back and support these systems and this information within their client offices. So I would just love to throw the doors open and welcome any speakers or trainers that are going internal into dental practices. We'd love to welcome you and your clients to our Leaders of the Pride and support you in taking that information back to their practices. So just let us know if we can do that.
Oh, that's awesome. And so many other offerings. So we'll just cap it there. And thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
Before we go, I just need to make a general announcement. Jumpstart2020.com is where we can register for Jumpstart. The early bird special is still in effect, but it won't be for much longer. You just use the word early bird, all one word, and you can save $300, which makes your 3-day conference experience only $1,800. That's a steal. What do you think? I mean, seriously, but we're getting there. Not only education as a speaker, the speaker development portion, but the networking. I've seen nothing like this in our industry. We have 12, let's call it a dozen, because I think it's 11 or 12 meeting planners, most of them from state and major national meetings in the industry, some from some other pretty big and a major outside the ADA, which is I'm yet to announce that that are there to scout speakers that are going to be hearing. It's too late to step in as a showcase or competition person. Those names were drawn back in June, but certainly the 3 days we're together, the networking opportunities with those scouts is just amazing. And our sponsoring partners are wonderful. They're there to support you. They want to learn more about you as a speaker and consultant. They want to, many of them are seeking speakers as well to work with their organizations for like regional meetings, that sort of stuff. It's so much more than education. Now at its core, it's speaker development, speaker education, but it's so much more. So if you would like to elevate your speaking business in January, you'll want to be at Jumpstart January 9th through, in 2020. You'll want to be at Jumpstart in January 9th through 11th. So, all right, done talking. We did it. We talked for an hour. I knew we would. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for listening in. Reach out to Katherine at info@lionspeak.net for more information, or reach out to us on Facebook, and I'm sure you'll be checking the comments and replying back there too. Thank you all for who commented and being here and saying, hey, I can't really tell who it was, so sorry. That's one thing with Be Live. It doesn't really show us. But thank you guys for being here. Really appreciate it. Have a great night. And until next time.
Bye, everyone. Great to be
well. Bye-bye.